Hey, good morning, guys. Here it is, Honda's 2019 CB650R. This is the middleweight Neo-Sport Café motorcycle from Honda. Slots in between Honda's entry-level CB300R and its premium CB1000R. We recently test rode this motorcycle during American Honda's official U.S. press introduction in Palm Springs. We've got to ride it for a couple hundred miles now, and it's a very nice motorcycle. Really like the attention to detail Honda did with this bike and the entire Neo-Sport Café lineup. Really showcases the mechanical architecture of the engine. Not a lot of body panels on it. The aesthetics of the motorcycle are really on display. I like the front overhang. It's super short, as is the rear. It's a compact and tidy motorcycle. And it's a motorcycle aesthetically that's going to appeal to someone who wants something a little different than what else is out there from other manufacturers, yet still a machine that's contemporary. Something that's going to turn heads subtly when you're riding on the road. So let's hop on it and see what it's like to ride. This is how I like to warm up the bikes, guys. Just joking. So here we go, a quick ride on Honda's 2019 CB650R. A variety of changes for the 2019 model year. This motorcycle replaces Honda's CB650F designation motorcycle, which was, a street fighter naked upright bike that Honda released a couple years ago. And they ditched the F to make for an R, to make for a more aggressive riding experience. Starting with the engine, Honda fitted new pistons inside the engine. Cam timing's a little bit different. Redline's been bumped up by 1,000 RPM. Now this motorcycle redline's just shy of 13,000 RPM. The previous engine made 79.1 horsepower. This new one makes 80.1 horsepower, so exactly one horsepower increase. A little bit better in terms of torque. It's actually 10% more torque than the previous engine. In addition to the new pistons and cam timing, Honda also changed the airbox. The airbox is shaped a little bit different and now has 2 ports instead of 1 to inhale air. On a side note too, that redesigned airbox, it gives the engine a little bit more induction howl. When you're on the throttle, it sounds a little bit more pleasing. Really like the sound, of a Japanese inline-four engine. It's got that real aggressive, just sporty, high revving tone to it. Even though this engine, you'd think that this engine would be based off Honda's CBR600RR engine, but it's not. It's purpose built for this platform. 649cc, shares the same bore measurement as the CBR600RR, but it's got a little bit longer piston stroke. I think 2.5 millimeters longer piston stroke. Gives it a little bit more torque, a little bit more grunt down low, and that's where this engine really shines, is just off the bottom, where the conventional 600cc i4s are all about top end wailing, 15,000 RPM red lines. This bike actually takes off from a start very well. 6-speed manual transmission, cable actuated clutch pull has been reduced a little bit for 2019. I'm not exactly sure how Honda did that. I assume they fitted lighter clutch springs, but I never remember the clutch lever effort being heavy before, but now it's super easy. Grab point's really nice. There's no clutch lever position adjustment, but I don't miss it. There is, however, brake lever position adjustment. 5 different positions. We have it in position 4 right now, which is nice for folks with a little bit smaller hands. Instrumentation is really nice. Got an iPhone 4 size display. Looks clean, it's easy to read. I do wish the fonts were a little bit larger though. It's one of the only gripes I have, is that it's a little bit hard to see. Fonts are a little bit small. Analog gauge is a little bit compact. You kind of have to squint a little bit to see what's going on there. But I do like how it has a gear position indicator. I like the fuel level gauge, so you can keep tabs on the capacity of the fuel tank. I think we averaged about 39.5 miles to a gallon. Excuse me guys, we're in California, so we're going to do some lane splitting here. We're going to bump up to the front of the line. Here we are, front of the line, guys. 39.5 mpgs during the press first ride. I think we covered about 100 miles that day. A little bit tricky conditions. It was raining and hailing a little bit, which is a tad unusual for Southern California in late May, but that's how it goes sometimes. Nine pounds lighter overall, this CB650R is. Ooh, this thing's got some get up and go. I like it. At this RPM, just south of 6,000, there's a hint of engine vibration, but it's not too strong. Downshift a couple gears and get it revving up to this engine speed, and I feel a lot more vibration. There's actually quite a bit of vibration coming through the handlebar and a little bit through the foot pegs. To be honest, it's a little bit excessive, especially for a Honda. You'd think a Honda would be a little bit more well calibrated in terms of engine vibration. But this motorcycle scoots along the road very nicely. Ergonomics are more aggressive than they were before. The handlebar is a little bit lower, a little bit more forward. Foot pegs have been raised and are a little farther back now. It's not an aggressive riding position, but it's just a little bit more sporty than the previous model, and I like that. Honda always, not always, but usually finds a good compromise between sport and comfort in terms of ergonomics, and they've done that quite well with this 2019 CB650R. Of course, this is a naked bike, so there's no front fairing, so when you're riding on the freeway, the wind's going to beat you up a little bit. You're going to be a little bit more fatigued when you arrive at your destination, but you're going to look cool doing it. And for around town city riding, it's kind of nice not having that fairing. You're just in the wind, getting to experience everything. You're not traveling at freeway speeds usually in and around town, so it's not that big of a deal that it doesn't have a fairing. Seat's very comfortable. I like how the passenger seat's wide too, so there's a good amount of room if you wanted to bring a passenger. They're not going to be crying in agony when you give them a ride on this bike. We're riding the non-ABS equipped version, so this has full manual brakes. There's no ABS, so you can lock up the front and rear tire. I like not having ABS. It makes for a more fun riding experience. For an extra $300 though, you can get ABS. The only caveat is it's always on. You can't manually disable it like you can on a lot of European motorcycles. With that extra $300 too comes Honda Selectable Torque Control, HSTC. That's Honda's nomenclature for its traction control. It's an on-off system, so by default the system's on. It mitigates wheel spin by controlling the engine's torque output. You can manually disable it via a button right here on the left handlebar switch gear. Of course, it's missing here because, again, we don't have that $300 option, but if you did, it'd be right here. And you can disable it if you want to pop wheelies or get the rear tire to spin on the throttle. If you're riding on gravel or light off-road and you want to make the motorcycle more maneuverable, you can disable it manually at a stop. In standard configuration without ABS, this bike rings in at $8,900. $9,200 for the ABS equipped version. Overall, I'd say for $300 and just get the standard version. It's more fun to ride. This motorcycle lost 9 pounds from the previous F designation. Honda did that by fitting lighter wheels, reducing the weight from the foot pegs. Even the fuel tank's lighter, as is the frame. With a full tank of fuel, this thing weighs in at 455 pounds, and it's a very nimble motorcycle. It goes where you want it to go. In typical Honda Neo-Sport Café fashion, the handling's balanced. This is a good motorcycle for someone who wants something that feels sporty in the corners, yet still delivers good ride quality. This motorcycle doesn't come equipped with a traditional suspension linkage. The shock mounts between the frame and the swing arm, but despite that direct mount, the rear suspension actually glides over bumps very well. I haven't ridden a bike that's got a direct mount rear shock like this that has such good ride quality in quite some time. I'm very impressed by it. 2019 Honda engineers, they re-engineered the bearing, where the bearing that holds the bottom of the shock and the swing arm, that bearing that mates those two components, has been redesigned for a little bit better durability, they say. Front suspension is comprised of Showa's separate function fork, SFF. This is the acronym for that. And what that means is, in one fork leg there's a spring that controls the spring rate of the motorcycle, the pitch. The other fork leg houses a damping cartridge that controls how fast the fork moves in its stroke and how fast it rebounds back to its normal position. There's no adjustment. Spring rate and damping are fixed, but it works good. Very versatile damping. Works good when you're riding fast. Works fine when you're riding slow and over bumpy surfaces. Honda did a really nice job with the suspension. Suspension adjustments limited to only the shock. It's got a ramp style preload adjuster, so there's 7 different notches you can adjust preload to based on the way you want the angle of attack of the motorcycle or the load capacity if you're carrying a passenger or have some luggage fitted with extra weight. But like the way this bike handles, it's nimble yet stable. Really also appreciate these Metzler Roadtech 01 tires. This is the first time Honda's used Metzler as an OE tire supplier, and they're wise to have chosen the Roadtech 01. It's a very good do-it-all, all-weather, all-purpose tire. I do prefer this tire to the Dunlop Sportmax D214 equivalent. I feel like this tire works much better than the Dunlop. So sometimes with these motorcycles, they'll have dual tire suppliers to make sure that the motorcycles always have rubber. In case Dunlop goes on strike or Metzler goes on strike, you'll always have a tire to fit on a brand new motorcycle. That's why a lot of times the motorcycle manufacturers go with 2 or even 3 tire suppliers. So if you're at the Honda dealership and you see a 2019 CB650R with Dunlops, pass it by for the one with Metzler's, because it's going to be better. Love the way this thing handles. Very sporty. Engine's got good get up and go. A lot of torque here through the mid-range. Exhaust notes fairly muted, of course, but I do hear a little bit of induction noise from the motorcycle. Not a lot, but more than I remember. Got triple hydraulic disc brakes on this bike. Another upgrade for 2019 was the fitment of radial mount Nissan 4-piston calipers. Sport bike like brakes on this bike, and it's got real strong braking performance. We'll speed up a little bit here so we can slow down really fast. And the brakes are very powerful. They get the bike slowed down very easily. Rear brake has good feel too. It's sharp but not overly so. I'm a big rear brake guy, and I like rear brakes that have good feel, good power. Again, this bike does not have Honda's $300 upcharge ABS option, but I prefer it that way because it makes the motorcycle more fun to ride. At the end of the day, would I purchase this $8,900 CB650R? Man, it's a little bit much for me. There's other entrants on the market that are a little bit more affordable. I think if Honda was able to get that price down a little bit, you know, if this bike was available for $8,000, I'd for sure pick one up. But it's a little bit pricey in my opinion. But to be fair, it's a very high quality motorcycle, even though this thing is not built in Japan. It's actually built in Honda's Thailand factory. The fit and finish on this bike's very high. All the body panels mate very well. The actual hardware of the motorcycle seems very well put together. Good finish on it. Doesn't look janky or cheap at all. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why this bike costs a little bit more than I'd like, is just that ultra high build quality. Well, there you have it, guys. A quick first ride review of Honda's 2019 CB650R. If you want to know more about this motorcycle and all the other motorcycles that are available in the United States, log on to cycleworld.com. They'll have a review of this thing. Do a query 2019 Honda CB650R review, and you'll be able to read the review. It'll have dyno information and more information. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment, and we'll see you guys next time. Gotta get back to riding here.